The message arrived on a Tuesday. Not that the day of the week mattered to the cosmos, but for us, it felt strangely mundane for such a monumental event. It didn't come with a flash of light or a thunderous boom. There was no grand ship parting the clouds above our cities. It was just a whisper, a pattern hidden in the background noise of space. For decades we had listened. Our great radio dishes were cupped ears turned to the heavens. We listened for a voice, a song, anything to prove we were not alone. We found pulsars and quasars and the faint echo of creation. We heard the universe humming its ancient, lonely tune. But we never heard a mind on the other end. Until that Tuesday. It was a signal of impossible complexity. Not a simple beep or a repeating pulse. This was a tapestry of data, a structure so intricate and deliberate, it could not be natural. Our best computers strained to even map its edges. Our brightest minds could only stare at the readouts in silent awe. This was it, the moment all of human history had been building toward. We had made contact, or rather, contact had been made with us. The signal was a ghost. It had no power behind it, just a repeating pattern woven into the fabric of space itself. It was as if someone had taught the stars to sing a new song. A song meant only for us. The first question was not, what does it mean? The first question was, what do we call them? We were a species obsessed with names. We named mountains and oceans, pets and storms. Naming something gave it a place in our world, made it real. How could we speak of our star-born neighbors without a name? Debates raged in every capital, in every online forum, on every news channel. Some suggested names from mythology, the Prometheans, the Titans. Others offered more technical labels, Source Alpha, the Eridani emitter. But none of them felt right. They were too grand or too cold. They didn't capture the sheer artistry of the message they had sent. It was a young linguist from Brazil who finally gave them the name that stuck. She argued the signal was not a statement. It was a piece of art, like a grand cosmic tapestry. It was woven from mathematics and physics. A beautiful, complex design. She said we should call them the Weavers. The name was perfect. It spread across the globe in a matter of hours. It felt right. It implied creation, intelligence, and a delicate touch. The Weavers, our silent friends from across the dark. We gave them a name as our first gift. It was an act of hope, a hand extended across the void. We were ready to be friends. We crafted our reply with the care of a poet and the precision of a watchmaker. It was our grand introduction to the universe. We sent them the basics of our biology. We sent them our mathematics and our chemistry. We showed them where we were, our sun, our planet, our little corner of the galaxy. We wanted them to know us. Then, we sent them our soul. We broadcast our greatest music, from Bach to the blues. We sent our most profound works of art, from cave paintings to modern sculpture. We sent them our stories, our hopes, our declaration that we valued peace and understanding. We wrapped it all in a message of greeting, and we sent them our name for ourselves, humanity. We sent our reply, and then we waited. The world held its breath. The silence that followed was heavier than the decades of silence before. Before, we had only hoped. Now, we knew they were there, and we knew they were listening. The days turned into weeks. Our optimism began to curdle into a low, quiet anxiety. Had we said the wrong thing? The reply came after 93 days. It was not a tapestry like their first message. There was no art to it, no elegance. It was a single brutal pulse of information, a tiny packet of data that stunned us into silence. We had sent them poetry. They had sent us a punch. Our experts worked frantically to decode it. We expected a name, a greeting, a question. We found none of those things. They did not send us a name. They did not acknowledge our art or our music. They sent us only one thing, a number. Just a number. Cold and exact and utterly alien. The number was long, a string of digits that seemed, at first, to be random noise. But it was broadcast with the same impossible clarity as their first message. This was deliberate. This had meaning. We just had to figure it out. Our best codebreakers and mathematicians worked around the clock. They tried every known cipher, every theoretical model. Nothing worked. The number defied our attempts to understand it. It wasn't a count of something. It wasn't a universal physical constant. It was just a number. For weeks, the greatest puzzle in human history was a string of digits on a screen. A joke started circulating among the research teams. Maybe it was their phone number. We needed some humor. The tension was becoming unbearable. The breakthrough came from a geographer, not a star science expert or a cryptographer, a woman who spent her life mapping the Earth's surface. She was looking at the number, idly tapping it into her mapping software. She thought, what if it wasn't a message to us? What if it was a message about us, about our home? She treated the number as a set of coordinates, a longitude and a latitude. And when she entered the final digit, a location appeared on her screen. Not in the stars, not on some distant moon. The location was here, on Earth. The number was a place on our own planet. The Weavers had never looked away. They were looking right at us. The room fell silent as the map resolved. The blinking cursor pulsed over a vast, empty stretch of land. The Great Sandy Desert in Australia, one of the most remote and desolate places on the planet. A place of endless red sand and scorching sun. A place forgotten by almost everyone. But not, it seemed, by the Weavers. The world changed in that moment. The romantic idea of the Weavers, our gentle, star-born friends, evaporated. The mystery deepened. The fear began. Why would they send us a location on our own world? Why that location? Was it a target, a warning, a meeting point? We had no answers. Only one terrifying question after another. This was no longer a scientific curiosity. It became a matter of global security. For the first time in centuries, the bickering of nations fell silent. Borders and politics seemed incredibly petty in the face of this. A single, unified purpose gripped humanity. We had to go there. We had to know what was in that desert. The global mission was formed, not by one country, but by all of them. It was the largest international cooperation in history. We pooled our resources, our technology, our best people. Soldiers stood beside scientists. Engineers worked with diplomats. Every nation sent its finest. It was a testament to what we could do when we were truly united and truly afraid. We assembled a team to go to the site. Dr. Aris Thorne, a geologist with more experience in deserts than a camel. Major Eva Rostova, a soldier whose calm under pressure was legendary. And Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the linguist who had first named the Weavers. He was there in case there was something to talk to. They were the tip of our spear, the best of us, sent into the unknown. They flew in on heavy transport planes. Their convoy of specialized vehicles kicked up clouds of red dust. They were a tiny island of human endeavor in a vast, empty sea of sand. The whole world watched on live feeds. We saw the endless horizon through their cameras. We felt the oppressive heat. We held our collective breath as they approached the coordinates, the number the Weavers had sent. They arrived at Site 0. The name felt appropriate. There was literally 0 there. The coordinates pointed to a random patch of sand. It was indistinguishable from the millions of square kilometers around it. Thorne's geological scanners showed nothing. No magnetic anomalies, no buried structures, no radiation. Just sand, and rock, and more sand. The disappointment was a palpable thing. We felt it in our control rooms back home. We saw it on the faces of the team in the desert. They had expected something. A crater, a beacon, a cryptic message written in the sand. Anything but this profound, absolute nothingness. Had it all been a cosmic prank? A wild goose chase across the stars and then across our own planet? Major Rostova established a perimeter. Her soldiers stood guard, their rifles pointed at an empty landscape. It seemed absurd. Guarding against what? Heat stroke? Angry scorpions? Yet nobody laughed. The feeling that they were being watched was unshakable. The silence of the desert felt like a held breath. For 3 days, they searched. They dug trenches. They flew drones. They used ground-penetrating radar. They found nothing. Back home, the global alliance began to fray. Old arguments resurfaced, accusations flew. Some said the signal was a hoax by a rival nation. Others claimed it was a misinterpretation from the start. The unity we had found was dissolving like a mirage. Then, on the 4th day, it happened again. Another pulse from the Weavers. Short, precise, just like the last one. Another number. Our teams decoded it in minutes this time. They knew what to look for. It wasn't a new location. It was an addendum, a correction. They had sent us more decimal points. They were telling us, you are in the right place. Now look closer. Much, much closer. The new coordinates were terrifyingly precise. Down to the millimeter. It wasn't just a spot in the desert anymore. It was a single grain of sand. Dr. Thorne located the point using a differential GPS. He knelt in the red dust, the sun beating down on him. The entire global mission, all our hopes and fears, focused on that one tiny spot under his finger. He began to dig, not with a shovel, but with his hands, carefully brushing the sand away. The world watched, mesmerized. A few centimeters down, his fingers touched something hard and smooth. It was not rock. It felt manufactured, polished. The team gathered around him, their instruments whirring and clicking. Slowly, painstakingly, they excavated it. It was a cube, a perfect, flawless cube, about 1 meter on each side. Its surface was a material we had never seen. It was not metal, not stone, not plastic. It was black, a black so deep it seemed to drink the light. When they shone a high-intensity lamp on it, the light simply vanished. It cast no reflection. It had no temperature. It was a patch of pure nothingness sitting in the desert sun. It defied physics. An object that absorbed 100% of all energy and light that struck it should have been incredibly hot. But it was cool to the touch. It registered on no sensor. To our cameras, it looked like a hole in reality. A perfectly square, 3-dimensional shadow. Major Rostova famously said it was like staring at God's blind spot. There were no seams, no buttons, no markings of any kind. It was utterly featureless, a monument to minimalism. We had crossed the void. We had united the planet. We had journeyed into the heart of our own wilderness. And we had found this, a silent, impossible box. We had no idea what it was, but we knew, with chilling certainty, that the Weavers had put it there. and they had known exactly when we would find it. We brought the cube back to a secure research facility, a new location built deep underground, far from any city. The whole operation was shrouded in the highest secrecy. But you cannot keep a secret of this magnitude. The story of the Black Cube, as the media called it, leaked within days. The world knew we had found something. They just didn't know what it was. Our best minds descended on the facility. They tried everything to understand the cube. They bombarded it with radiation. They subjected it to immense pressures. They tried to drill it, to cut it with lasers. Nothing left a mark. The cube remained inert, impassive, perfect. It was like a question we didn't know how to ask, a lock with no conceivable key. We spent weeks studying it, learning absolutely nothing. The initial excitement of the discovery soured into a deep, frustrating dread. The cube just sat there in its containment chamber, a silent black monolith that mocked our science. It was a constant reminder of our own ignorance. We were children poking a sleeping dragon with a stick. And then, the Weavers sent their third message. It arrived exactly 28 days after we had unearthed the cube. Another pulse, another number. By now, our teams were grimly efficient. They decoded it instantly. This time, it wasn't a location. It was a sequence, a series of numbers. The numbers were descending. It was a countdown, a timer. The first number was large, but when calculated, it translated into a specific amount of time. 366 of our days. The sequence was the proof. They sent an update every 24 hours, a new number, relentlessly ticking down. The clock had started. We just didn't know what would happen when it reached 0. A countdown to what? The question echoed in the halls of power, in newsrooms, and over family dinner tables. The optimism of first contact was a distant memory. Now there was only fear. The Black Cube was no longer seen as a puzzle. It was seen as a threat, a bomb, a Trojan horse left on our doorstep. Panic is a virus, and it spread through the global consciousness with terrifying speed. Markets crashed. People built bunkers. Strange cults emerged, worshipping the cube or preaching an imminent apocalypse. The brief unity we had found shattered completely. Nations blamed each other. Some wanted to attack the cube, to try and destroy it with nuclear weapons. Others argued that would be suicide, provoking the Weavers into a devastating response. Our leaders were paralyzed. They had no good options. Every possible course of action was fraught with unimaginable risk. Do nothing and wait for the timer to hit 0, or act and risk starting a war with a power we could not possibly comprehend. The Weavers had not fired a single shot, but they had brought our civilization to its knees with nothing more than a few numbers. The pressure on the research team was immense. They worked in shifts, never leaving the cube unattended. They were looking for a clue, a weakness, any kind of sign. But the cube remained silent. It just sat there, absorbing all light, all hope. And every day, a new number arrived from the stars. A cold, precise reminder that time was running out. Each number was another turn of the screw. Some of us started to wonder if this was the point. The test. To see if we would tear ourselves apart under pressure. Maybe there was no bomb. Maybe we were the bomb. And the Weavers had simply lit the fuse and stood back to watch. It was a dark thought. But in those days, dark thoughts came easily. We were a species trapped by a question we couldn't answer. And the clock was ticking. With the countdown proceeding, a new strategy was proposed. It was born not of logic, but of desperation. If we could not understand their language of numbers, Perhaps we could make them understand ours. The language of emotion, the language of life. We had to show them what they would be destroying. We had to show them we were worth saving. It was our last best hope. A global effort was launched, grander than any before. We turned our most powerful transmitters back to the stars, not to send scientific data, but to send our culture, to send a plea. We broadcast footage of our world's most beautiful places, the great mountains and the deep blue oceans, the sprawling forests and the quiet rivers. We showed them our planet in all its vibrant glory. We sent them the faces of our children, laughing, playing. We sent the sound of a baby's first cry and an old man's gentle wisdom. We sent them our art, the paintings that captured our sorrow and our joy, the sculptures that reached for the heavens. We performed concerts for an audience of one, light years away, an entire planet playing its heart out. We sent them stories of heroism and sacrifice, of love and compassion. We tried to build a bridge across the silence, to show them the texture of our existence, the messy, chaotic, beautiful reality of being human. We confessed our flaws, our wars, our mistakes. We showed them we were imperfect, but we also showed them we were trying to be better. It was the most honest we had ever been, not just with the Weavers, but with ourselves. We laid our entire species bare, our hopes, our fears, our one unified plea. Please, don't let the countdown be the end. Let it be the beginning. We sent it all out into the void. A message in a bottle, thrown into a dark and silent sea, hoping someone would read it and understand. We sent our soul into the cosmos, and the cosmos did not reply. The Weavers remained utterly silent. They did not acknowledge our plea. They did not react to our music or our art. Our desperate, heartfelt confession was met with a profound and chilling indifference. It was as if we were shouting into a hurricane. Our voice was lost, meaningless. The silence was their answer. It told us more than any message could. It told us that our culture, our emotions, our very identity did not matter to them. It was irrelevant. All our struggles and triumphs, all our love and our pain. It was just noise to be ignored. They were not interested in a dialogue. They were not interested in us as a people. There was only one thing they continued to send: the countdown. Every single day, like clockwork, a new number arrived from the void. Precise, inescapable, cold. Each number chipped away at our remaining hope. It was a brutal conversation. We would shout our humanity into the sky, and they would reply with a single digit. Tick, tick. The global mood soured from panic to a grim resignation. The argument stopped. There was nothing left to say. We had shown them our heart, and they had shown us their back. The team at the underground facility continued their work. But the atmosphere had changed. The frantic energy was gone, replaced by a quiet, methodical watch. They were no longer scientists trying to solve a puzzle. They were keepers of a doomsday clock. We watched the numbers fall, from 300 to 200 to 100. Each update was a global news event, a stark reminder of the approaching deadline. The Weavers were not communicating. They were issuing a decree, and we were powerless to stop it. The silence was not empty. It was full of contempt. The final 24 hours were the strangest day in human history. The world went quiet. Businesses closed, streets were empty. It was not a day for panic anymore. We had exhausted our fear. There was only a profound and heavy sense of anticipation, a global vigil, billions of people united in waiting. Families gathered in their homes. Friends held each other close. People looked up at the sky as if they could see the final number making its journey to us. In the underground facility, the team stood before the black cube. They had done everything they could. The time for science was over. Now, they were just witnesses. The live feeds from the chamber were broadcast on every screen on the planet. We all watched the same image. The perfect black square sitting in its sterile containment field. The clock in the corner of the screen ticked down the final minutes. Then, the final seconds. We counted down with it, in every language, in one voice, 10, 9, 8. We thought of our history, of all the struggles to get to this moment, all the wars fought, the discoveries made, the love shared. It all felt so fragile, so precious. Was this how it ended? Not with a bang of our own making, but with a silent judgment from the stars. The Weavers had named us with a number, and that number was now 0, 3, 2, 1, 0. The countdown on the screen hit its end. For a single, terrifying second, absolutely nothing happened. The cube just sat there. The silence stretched. The world held its breath, braced for an impact that didn't come. And then, a sound. A low, soft hum. It started quietly, almost imperceptibly, but it grew steadily in volume and pitch. The black cube was waking up. The lights in the containment chamber flickered. The instruments monitoring the cube went wild, their needles jumping off the charts. The hum became a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through the facility. We could feel it through our screens, a tremor in the heart of the world. The cube did not look like a weapon. It looked like an instrument being tuned, and it was about to play its first note. The black cube did not explode. It did not release a death ray or open a portal to some hellish dimension. It did something far stranger, something far more beautiful and terrifying. It unfolded. The perfect, seamless surfaces separated. They peeled back like the petals of a bizarre, geometric flower. It was impossible. There had been no seams, no joints. Yet it opened. From the center of the unfolding cube, a light emerged. Not a harsh, blinding light, but a soft, silvery glow. It pulsed gently in time with the deep hum that now filled the air. It was a light that didn't cast shadows. It seemed to pass through solid objects as if they weren't there. It filled the containment chamber, then the entire underground facility. It was utterly silent, and it was everywhere. The team in the facility felt no heat, no radiation. They felt a strange sense of peace, a deep, calming stillness that settled over them. They were not afraid anymore. They were in awe. On our screens, we watched as the silver light continued to expand. It passed out of the facility, up through the earth and rock above it. It emerged from the ground and spread out into the desert. The bloom, we called it later. The light washed over the red sands of the Australian desert, the place where we had first found the cube, the place the Weavers had pointed us to. It spread in a perfect circle, expanding outwards at an incredible speed. It was a wave of pure creation, a wave of change. The world watched, speechless, as the wave rushed across the barren landscape. It was rewriting the world before our very eyes. We had expected an ending, an explosion, a judgment. We had braced for the fury of the Weavers. But this was not an act of war. It was not an attack. It was something else entirely. We had spent a year in fear of a bomb, but the Weavers hadn't sent a bomb. They had sent a seed. And at 0 hour, that seed had begun to sprout. Where the silvery light passed, the world was remade. The dry, red desert sands darkened with moisture. The cracked earth softened. And then, life erupted. Tiny green shoots pushed their way up through the sand. In seconds, they grew into lush grasses and strange, alien flowers of vibrant blue and gold. The transformation was instantaneous, miraculous. The wave of terraforming energy continued to spread. It turned barren rock into fertile soil. It carved new rivers that flowed with crystal-clear water. Great trees, unlike any species on Earth, rose from the ground. Their leaves were a shimmering silver, catching the desert sun. An entire ecosystem bloomed in a matter of minutes. The air filled with the scent of damp earth and alien blossoms. The change was not just botanical. Animals appeared, graceful, six-legged creatures that drank from the new rivers. Flocks of iridescent birds that sang songs our ears had never heard. The desert, once a symbol of desolation, had become a paradise, a garden, a new Eden, born from a black cube and a silent hum. We had been so wrong, so profoundly, completely wrong. The numbers were not a threat. The countdown was not a menace. The weavers had not sent us a weapon. They had sent us a gift of unimaginable value. They had shown us how to create life from nothing. They had given us a garden in our own backyard. The fear that had gripped the world for a year dissolved. It was replaced by a wave of shame, followed by a profound sense of wonder. We had been like frightened children in the dark, imagining monsters. When all along someone was just trying to turn on the light. The weavers didn't speak our language of emotion. They spoke a language of action, of results. Their message was not in words, but in creation. We finally understood. It was like a key turning in the collective lock of our minds. The weavers were not gods or monsters. They were engineers. They were gardeners. Their language was not poetry. It was precision. It was mathematics. They didn't care about our feelings or our art. They cared about what was real, what was quantifiable, what could be built. Their first message, the intricate tapestry, was a blueprint. Their second message, the coordinate, was a location. Their third message, the countdown, was an activation sequence. They had communicated with us perfectly. It was we who had been unable to listen. We were a species of poets, trying to understand a species of architects. We looked at our new world with new eyes. We saw the mathematics in the spiral of a flower, the physics in the flow of a river. The universe was not a story. It was a grand, elegant equation. And for the first time, we began to understand its grammar. We had spent a year sending them our soul. And we finally realized they had been sending us an instruction manual. It was time to reply. Not with more music or more art. It was time to speak their language, to show them that we had learned the lesson, that we understood. The debate over what to send was short. The answer was obvious. It had to be simple, clear, precise. It had to be a number. So we aimed our transmitters at the heavens once more. We took all the power of our planet, all our focus, and we sent our first message in their tongue. We did not send a long, complex sequence. We did not send a plea or question. We sent a single, deliberate pulse of information, a statement of acknowledgement, a sign of new beginnings. We sent the number 1.